In this video, we're going to show you how to install the rear upper control arm on your Ford Focus located in the rear suspension. Now we're going to use our 19mm socket to loosen and remove the lug nuts. Good, remove the wheel and set it aside. Now that we have the tire off, we're going to go ahead and jump to our breaker bar with our extension, and it goes all the way up above the cradle here, up here to a swivel socket and a 15mm socket on the end of that. We did spray that bolt down with some rust penetrant and we let it soak for about 20 minutes. Then we're going to go ahead and break this bolt free. And sometimes what you can do is work this bolt back and forth as you're removing it. I'm going to work this back and forth. I can feel that bolt starting to bind up a little bit. So I'm going to work it back. I'm going to spray the end of that bolt with some more rust penetrant on the back side there. I'm going to slowly work this back and forth until we can get that bolt pretty much out. If you want to, once that bolt starts to come out, you can probably switch over to an impact gun and zip that right out. Work that back in, and we're going to continue this process until we can get that bolt out, putting it back in, spraying it down, and work it back out. Last thing we want to do is break a bolt up in this position. Now what we're going to do is, before we remove that big bolt up top, we're going to go ahead and put our jack underneath the control arm here. And we're just going to jack this up a little bit. We're just going to take a little bit of that weight off of that arm. I'm not going to jack up the vehicle, but just lift that up probably about an inch or two. Let's go ahead and loosen that bolt a little more. And we can see that bolt is tilted up a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower our jack a little bit. All right, we have a little bit of mobility out of that bolt. We can see the bolt shifting a little bit. Before we pop that out completely, which it's just about there, I'm gonna go ahead and start to work on the outboard bolt and loosen that one. Now, if you follow this upper control arm over, there's a 50mm bolt right here that goes through the trailing arm. We're gonna go ahead and use our socket, 15mm, and our impact gun and zip this out. With this free, we should be able to go ahead and pop out the inboard bolt. And wiggle that out. Now we went ahead and removed both of the bolts, and the bolts are identical, so it doesn't matter which bolt goes where. It's best if you go ahead and clean off these threads, use a wire brush or wire wheel, clean them up, and then put a little bit of anti-seize compound on them before we install. Let's go ahead and slowly lower our jack. Drop that down. And then we want to go ahead and start to manipulate that upper control arm up and out. I'm going to go ahead and use a pry bar. I'm just going to gently kind of work this out. Now it is coming in contact with our brake line, but we want to go ahead and get that free. As I move this here, the inboard portion of this arm is dropping out, and that's exactly what we wanted. There we go, just pry that out. So the way this is coming out is the same way you're going to install it. We're going to take the arm and put it into the trailing arm and then feed the inboard portion up into position. We want to feed our control arm up. Now it doesn't have to go into the trailing arm yet, but we're just going to kind of get it up into position. There it is. And then we're going to feed the inboard portion. Now when doing this job here, you want to be careful of the hard line here. You don't want to damage it, but it does have a little bit of flexibility in it. You can go ahead and move that around a little bit. Let's go ahead and work that arm up inward here. A little bit of patience, work that around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use an air tool, but I'm going to use my ratchet with the extension and see if I can get those threads started. Now our plan here is to just go ahead and get that bolt in several threads, but we're not going to tighten it. We want that control arm to be loose. All right, that's good right there. Let's go ahead and move to the outer bolt and get that installed. Now at this point here, we want to go ahead and start to jack up our suspension so that our trailing arm lines up with our control arm. We want to go ahead and bonk this in. And we're probably going to proceed to do that as this control arm goes up. And then we'll have to push us in a little bit. I'm going to have to bonk it with the mallet. Now at this point here, we're pretty close. What I like to use is a screwdriver, and I'm going to go through, and you just want to kind of go through the control arm and the trailing arm and trying to get this to line up. I did go ahead and apply some anti-seize compound to our bolt, and we could line that up here. I'm going to continue to raise this up. It's going to help us get the proper angle on that control arm. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a pair of pliers, and we're going to grab the control arm, and we're going to twist the control arm to line up this bolt with the nut on the other side. I'm going to put my pliers on the arm itself, top and bottom, and kind of rock this and just kind of bop that in. Once you feel that bolt pop into place, we're going to go ahead and grab our ratchet, and we're going to go ahead and get that started in there. Now before you tighten down the outer bolt and the inner bolt, what we want to do is go ahead and compress our suspension to what we call a neutral ride height. And that means if you had the wheel on the vehicle and it was lower to the ground, that suspension was fully compressed at its neutral ride height, that's what we're looking to get. So we're going to go ahead and jack this up until the vehicle just starts to come off of our lift. That means our suspension is compressed, and then we can tighten and torque both of these bolts. Now that we have our vehicle at its neutral ride height, let's go ahead and tighten down our bolts. And let's go ahead and snug down that inner bolt. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and torque these bolts down to 85 foot-pounds. And onto the outer bolt. Now at this point here, we can go ahead and remove our jack from our suspension. At this point here, if you need to, go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Install your wheels. Don't forget, get in alignment after this job has been performed, and you're all set. Go ahead and take your wheel, line it up on the wheel studs, and we'll get the lug nut started. It's always best to start all of the lug nuts by hand and then tighten them down. That way that we don't cross thread the lug nuts. Now when snugging these down, you want to do this in a crisscross pattern. Now let's get and torque down our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds. We're going to do this in a crisscross pattern. And you're all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.